Hey guys, Chris Chin here from TopSpeed.com, and we are out here just outside Phoenix at the Radford Racing School, home of the High Performance Driving Performance School of Dodge SRT. And I am also here with Audrey Moore, who is the chief engineer of the Dodge Charger EV, the car that we are standing next to today. The very exciting new all-electric version of the Charger that has generated quite a bit of buzz, joke pun intended. And Audrey's going to, tell us a little bit about the car from her perspective and her team's perspective, and just kind of give a little bit of an inside look into the car. So, Audrey, it's a pleasure to meet you. And so, let's get to it.
Well, thank you for this. It's a great opportunity to tell you about this new amazing product that we have, the Dodge Charger Daytona. This vehicle is the Scat pack that we're looking at right now, so it is the top of the line version. You can see at the front of this car, we have this beautiful design in the car with the front wing that we have, reminiscent of taking a look at a few things. You can see the front end of the car reminiscent of some of the 68 Chargers, and then we took it above and beyond in our exterior studio and added this patent-pending, R-wing to it. The Scat pack itself has just such a beautiful, sleek body line to it. Our exterior guys did such a great job. The body structure of this is actually off of our multi-energy Stella Large platform. The platform itself actually has a common body structure between our BEV cars and our internal combustion cars that are coming in 2025. The cool thing about the body structure of this too is that we have 23% more stiffness in this over the exit model, and we have better downforce. But also in this car we have, in this model, a glass roof. So you have a full panoramic glass roof on the car, so you always get to have the light coming in. But we have a nice heat resistant management so you don't get too hot while you're driving the car. The vehicle itself is a little bit bigger, like a wide body, like we used to have with the Challenger wide body. So we started with that. And then we added on these amazing wheel and tire packages, the largest offset wheel and tire package that we've ever offered. So we have 305 20s in the rear, front, and 325 20s in the rear. It has a large tire patch to keep it on the road, so when you're going on the track events, you stay planted and it does exactly what you want.
Awesome. And then I noticed that you pointed out with the kind of the front spoiler here, it looks like there's a pass-through, through the grille. Yeah. And so I'm presuming that not only helps with downforce, but also with aerodynamics and helping to reduce drag, so that also you get more driving range.
Absolutely,
correct?
Yes. And the aerodynamics was key not only for performance, but also for range, right? For efficiency and everything else. So yeah, absolutely. That's actually a nice fun thing. You have 6 piston front calipers. You have 4 piston fixed in the rear.
Massive.
I know, they're massive, but the vehicle is a little bit heavier because of the weight of the battery, and it still has to give us the performance of 0 to 60, but then being able to stop, right? Because we have the big wheels and tires, the brakes. We also have on this model adaptive 2-valve damping, so that you get a better feedback into the car for all the drive modes. So the very cool thing about this car is, unlike the previous model, which was a sedan, this is actually a hatch. So we'll just, with the Fratzonic logo, so full hatch design, so it gives a lot of flexibility for the customer. Now you can fold down both of the seats, as you can see here, and you have so much more flexibility, almost not quite UV-like, but it definitely has more than this traditional sedan. So this rounds out a really nice design that the exterior team did on the car, really elevating it to the next level from what we had previously.
So would you even say it's safe to call this design-wise, kind of like a fastback kind of style?
Yeah, kind of. In some aspects of it, I absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely would.
Cool. All right, so that was a really cool walk around of the exterior. So tell us what's special about the interior now.
This is, from a Dodge perspective, one of the things that we wanted to make certain we did was maintain the cockpit, like driver-centric cockpit, right? That's what we've done on previous models, and that's really important for this next one. So as you can see here, it's really focused on the driver. We have this new pistol grip shifter. So we have steering wheel here, which is all new with the 2 flat tops that we have. You have the accessibility to a lot right here on the steering wheel, which we really wanted to have, You have the paddles on the back for regen, which allows you to just change the regen really quickly while you're driving. And then the two biggest buttons here at the bottom, you have Power Shot, which is 40 horsepower for additional 40 horsepower for 10 seconds. And then you have your drive modes, and you can either hit the drive mode screen or just flip between the different drive modes. You're sitting right now in the new high back seat version of the seats. First time we've ever offered this from an OEM straight to the customer. And then you can see here, we not only have a nice 16-inch cluster, we have our radio screen, and we have a heads-up display, 8 liters of information that's just right there when you're driving. That is one of the things that for me, I've come to love, having all that information right at your fingertips. And it changes the information in the screen as you go through all the different drive modes. And then as you look at that, and then we also have the ambient lighting. So there's a full string of ambient lighting, 64 colors, so that you can change it depending on your mood. Some days you might want to go blue for calm notes. So it's all there, and it's all within the radio here. You can set the settings, you can make it bright to dim, and then change the color for full spectrum of the rainbow.
And one thing I got to point out for our viewers is I really appreciate how you guys kept physical buttons for some of the controls. So we have an actual volume knob, we have actual touch button or physical buttons for the HVAC system, which are very, very important to have. And I also love how the dashboard, the center console, is, like you said, driver oriented towards the driver, so that it's easier for reach and use.
All right, so let's talk about the propulsion system of the vehicle. So the power of it comes from a 100.5 kilowatt hour battery, 13 modules from Samsung in a prismatic layout. We have 2 EDM standard all-wheel drive, 250 kilowatts, so 500 total, which gives us, on this model, 670 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds, faster than some of our outgoing models between the Hellcat and Red-Eye. But then this vehicle also, from a propulsion perspective, has a standard limited slip differential. So that's standard on all of our cars, standard all-wheel drive. But then we actually give the ability for it to go into rear-wheel drive mode. So one of the other biggest features that's probably been talked about quite a bit, you've seen it on the internet, the Fratzonic chambered exhaust. So people have heard it, there's been lots of comments. So this chambered exhaust here, what it does is it really gives us the ability to take the inputs from the vehicle. So whether you're on the throttle, whether or not you're going into sport mode, whatever is going on, and it gives direct output to the customer. So
because it resonates, as I've experienced already in the car, because it kind of resonates throughout the rest of the car, it almost kind of gives the feel of like having a Hemi under the hood, even though there isn't, unfortunately, but like it definitely provides the kind of, rumbly, not just by the sound, but the feel. And one thing I got to point out here is that although it sounds like a gimmick, and I'm sure your team, and of course you can agree with this, is that there's actually a functional aspect to having those sounds and to having the sound generator to the car. So like when I was in another vehicle, another high-performance electric vehicle, and I was on the track, one of their engineers mentioned, and it's something that I learned then, is that those audio cues actually also help you while you're on the track. Because if you're used to driving ICE cars on the track, you know that when you're coming up to a corner, you're hard on the brakes and you're in a certain gear, the engine at that certain speed is going to remind you that you're at that corner, and it's an audible cue to remind you that, hey, you're at this corner. If you're in an ICE car, you were in a third gear coming down to second in 5,500 RPM or whatever it was coming up to that corner, and having that is a lot better than just having nothing and just pure silence, which can be a very disorienting experience. Well, Audrey, thank you so much for walking us around the exterior, the interior, and just telling a bit some of the highlights of the powertrain of the propulsion system. So just some questions for you. So like, what were some of your favorite or your team's favorite aspects to engineering and developing this car? Like, what were some of your top favorite things?
On my top two for this, it really came down, the first one is the body structure and the multi-energy. We're taking something that needed to do so many different things, bring in internal combustions, bring in BEVs, and then integrate in frameless doors, right? So the structure itself had to do so much, but then in the end it delivered to every expectation that we had. So it was a fun engineering development project for us that really was satisfying and over-delivered in many aspects. The second one is the Fratzonic. The time that it took, the research that we did, the amount of people that we involved, sound people from, we actually talked to people in Hollywood, right, just to understand generations of sound. But this truly was a very intensive project that we wanted to make certain with multiple research clinics that we got it right, that people would get in the car and just say, wow, this is awesome.
Awesome, for sure. And then actually that made me think of a question in terms of the Fratzonic system. Has your team had any interest in possibly looking into programming sort of like a simulated step transmission, kind of feel to the car? So I don't mean to talk about a competitor, but Hyundai.
Oh, yeah.
A few people who are familiar, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, and that was one of its biggest features, and it's one that generated a lot of conversation. Was just how even though there's no physical step to transmission like your traditional 8-speed ZF automatic, they still found a way to simulate 8 actual gears into the car. And has that been of any interest? And have you heard of any desire from that from your customers?
We talked about it. When you start doing something like this, the world becomes your oyster, and there's so many different ways that you could integrate it. I think we found a good package to initially start, and I think we've created a system that we can now figure out where we want to go with it in future model years and to future things. So I think there's always things that we could do moving forward. This was a good starting point for us, I think.
Okay, cool. And then what were some of the biggest challenges that you and your team faced?
When you actually get to the point where you have to integrate a BEV and put a battery on the bottom of it and make certain that you're not hitting the ground, and you account for all the different items versus when the battery's not there and you have to go to an ICE. And it was the constant read across and in between the two to make certain that whether it's going over speed bumps, whether it's durability, whether it's aerodynamics, the purpose of this was for us to have the most not common, but to reduce the amount of complexity, design everything so that it could be together and fit together as much as possible.
Cool. I mean, I always say, if people kind of understood just kind of the amount of work and effort that went into engineering and developing a vehicle, not to mention manufacturing a vehicle, to from raw materials and resources down to the end user, to the vehicle that lands in the person's driveway, I think there'd be a much greater appreciation to the amount of work and the amount of labor of love that goes into actually making a car.
Agree.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, on a slightly different note, if there was a couple things that you wanted to, say to those out there who are a bit skeptical about the Charger EV, because obviously this is a vehicle that's generated quite a bit of hype, but if there was something you wanted to share to those that, were a bit on the skeptical side, what would you like to tell them?
First and foremost, this started as a muscle car. We designed it as a muscle car, and it starts from stuff, that's been out there, 10 plus years, and we've established that. It's still the same thing, but better, right? We still have the internal combustion engines coming. We've just added electrification to the mix. It's just another piece of the Dodge evolution, but it has everything that we had previously and even more. I mean, standard, the all-wheel drive, the limited slip differential in the rear, we never did that before. The high-back seats, first time offering, we've brought so much more into this car and taking it to the next level, and I think they've really got to give it a chance before they become a naysayer.
Cool. I agree, especially since after the time that I've had with it out here at the Radford Racing School. But Audrey, thank you so much for your time, and thanks guys for tuning in on this little snippet of TopSpeed out here at the Radford Racing School in just outside Phoenix in Arizona. And we will catch you next time, so be sure to tune in.